All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the podcast. So glad that you're joining us. And today we actually have a guest with us. Ted Watson from Holloway Sales is joining us. And Ted is an expert in display technology. We work on a lot of projects together for churches, for different industries. And so we thought we'd bring him in with his knowledge, along with all of our experience in installing these products, and talk about display technology today. But before we jump into that, how you guys doing today? How's everybody holding up with day 28 or whatever it is of Corona?
I've run a few laps around the house.
To get away from the kids, or just to stay in shape?
Everything.
Just trying to stay out of the way of my wife. She's chasing me around the house, trying to get me out.
Yeah. How about you, Ted? How you been holding up, man, during all this?
Oh, good. Getting a lot of projects and design work done that I don't have time to do when I'm out on the road. So certainly good to be spend some home time. So I've actually been enjoying the lockdown a bit.
That's great. And Ted, where are you located right now? Where are you stay? Where are you?
In Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo, nice. Yeah, that's great. I actually love Kalamazoo. It's a great city.
My old stomping grounds.
Yeah,
that's right.
Great stuff over there, like Bells and Arcadia. What's the name of that one?
They're still trying to recover from you.
What's the name of the what, Christian?
What's the name of that one place that has like the different beers, and you can it's like a stock exchange, and like if
yeah.
Name of that place?
Oh, for gosh sakes.
The beer exchange.
The beer exchange. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's some really cool spots over there. Me and my wife,
great bar.
Our favorite Indian restaurant is located in Kalamazoo. It's called Saffron's. It's the best. I love Saffron so much.
Yep.
And but anyways, if you guys are ever in Kalamazoo and you listen to this podcast, tell them Christian sent you, and you won't get a discount. You won't get a discount, but just tell them.
You won't.
Just tell them anyways.
Just getting excited there for a minute.
Yeah, right. Get 10%.
So anybody got any? Everyone staying healthy, safe. Families are all good.
Yeah.
So far,
good.
Yeah, we're staying.
I know in our first podcast, I talk about one of our tech directors, or one of our technical people, not tech directors, the technical person from our church, who was on the tech team in contract or got the COVID, and he has been on a ventilator. So just to update everybody and listen to that first podcast, they're working him off. So that's a good thing.
That's awesome.
Looks like he's turned the corner and they're working him off the thing. And his wife, who showed signs of having it, looks like that she is not going to have to go to the hospital. So all good. That's a good thing,
man. That is awesome. I've been reaching out to everybody in my network all over the United States and just checking in. Some of them work for other integrating companies. Some of them are church leaders. Some of them are just in regular business, and just checking in. How are you doing? Are you still working? How's your family? How are you feeling? Some of them own businesses, and everybody's feeling it in different ways right now. And I just think acknowledging that and saying, hey, how are you for real? Normally we go around, we say, hey, how's it going? And it's kind of like, fine, but right now is the time to really expand on how are you really doing? And so I really appreciate you asking that, Todd. And we're doing good. We're super blessed, and I can't complain. So,
man.
Yeah, man. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive into display technology. Today, we're going to be talking about just different ways to, I guess, have video in different contexts. And when I talk about video, I'm talking about projections or projectors and televisions or LCD wall panels. And then we're also going to talk about LED panels and LED walls. And so we're going to be diving into that today and kind of trying to educate everybody on why go with one versus the other, and what are the important questions to ask as you're developing your project or your vision in order to make sure that you have the right solution. You don't want to get stuck with the wrong solution when you're dropping thousands of dollars on technology. You want to make sure that it is the right solution and it's going to accomplish exactly what you want. And that's why you normally want to talk to experts. And that's why we have, Ted joining us today so that we can kind of get some of that information and pass it along to you, the listener. So Ted, why don't you break down a little bit the definition of these different technologies so that we have a good starting point that everybody can kind of, go from.
Sure. So we've done a lot of I've done a lot of projects with Parkway. I do a lot of projects with all the shops in the Midwest, and kind of what we found is when people are looking for solutions for their, hey, I've got this space, I'd like to get some video in here. There's kind of a handful of different ways to go. The first one is going to be super simple. Let's get some type of like an LED LCD television. It's big enough for what we want to do. We're going to put it on the wall. There's a really, really simple solution right there. Another one would be to tile those, where I know you guys have done a lot of projects like here where you have maybe, two displays wide, 2 displays tall, 3 displays wide, 3 displays tall. And it's kind of a matrix design. You've got kind of the grid pattern, and it makes the image, it makes the display surface much larger, which is great. Another one
and you actually see a lot of those at like restaurants and hotels. Absolutely. Where they put a lot of those displays together just to paint a picture for people, right, at bars, that sort of thing.
Right.
A great example people see it all the time lately, especially, is in the news. So if you look at the backdrop to a lot of the news anchors in the newsrooms, those are video walls. You can see the lines in between.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that the kind of the matrixing of the display, where you kind of have the grid pattern of the displays, kind of where that came from is there's physical limitations on the size of a display that you can have. There's certainly, 55-inch, 65-inch, 80-inch, we're getting into the 90s. I think Samsung has a couple right at 100 or over 100, right around there. But that's a huge TV. That's a huge display. It's going to be very, very difficult and cost prohibitive to go much larger than that on a single display. So what a lot of the bars and restaurants that are doing is they'll take, say, 4 55-inch displays, which are readily available. They're inexpensive. It's a really, really good cost benefit to be able to have you put 4 55-inch TVs together, you have a 110-inch display. That would be a lot less expensive than buying a 100-inch display, a single 100-inch display. So probably the most traditional way to display things for events would be projectors. And projectors have been around for a long time. I'm sure we're all, we've all had some experience with them.
Does that include overhead projection?
Hey, you're not that old. That's
slide projectors.
Come on, man.
I'm going to let
like
that
my
one
teacher
go.
used to write on with the little dry erase marker.
Yeah.
How do you sync slide projectors again?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry,
all right,
go
be
ahead.
honest.
Yeah.
Who had to do that? Who had to sync slide projectors in their past? Come on.
I have not.
Serious?
Yeah, I haven't had.
I have not.
No.
Oh boy. I'm really showing my age.
Yeah. So I'm not saying I haven't used slide projectors. I'm just saying I've never had to sync them. So
I'll bet you, I got one for you though. I'll bet you did at some point in your career have to actually synchronize a 3-gun CRT projector though, right?
I was not doing video back when those were around.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was not responsible for it in the same way that I
all right, let's move on.
Right,
Let's move on.
We can certainly have a whole nother segment about archaic technologies.
Yeah.
Featuring Todd and his
when I used to drive my dinosaur to work. Yeah.
Fred Flintstone over here.
Projectors are great. They've served the industry for a tremendously long time. There's a lot of situations that we're going to get into where they're still a great option, because there's certain things that you can do with projection that you can't do with display or direct view LED. And now that being said, there's been a lot of progress made in projection especially over, I would say, the last 10 years, getting into, away from bulbs, getting into the lasers, things like that, which really, really moves projection. I would say that extends the life of projection in the industry quite a bit. So moving into those.
So basically, we're talking 3 technologies today. We're talking LCD single displays, TVs, if you will. Those TVs gang together, making video walls or LCD walls. Projection. Everyone knows, most people know what projectors are. We can get into different types. And then the direct view LED stuff, which is your very large displays, all one seamless look made up of tons of little LEDs that are out there. And these are the things you see on big billboards alongside the highway and big sports stadiums, things like that, and working their way into a lot of other things. So,
yeah. So, Ted, what about LED walls? You want to just kind of give us a little definition on that?
Sure. So, kind of the last thing that we have would be something like a direct view LED wall. And what a direct view LED wall is, it's basically kind of a little 101 here, so everyone's kind of on the same page. What we have with the direct view LED wall is we're going to start with something called a panel. And a panel is, they come in a handful of different sizes, but what you have the ability to do with these panels is you can lock as many of them together horizontally or vertically to build the size wall that you want to do. The great thing about that is it gives us the ability to have a display surface that is just about any size that you would like and completely seamless. So there's no bezels actually on the surface of the wall. So if you came to me and said, hey, I have a room, we would like a 16-foot by 9-foot screen, great, no problem. I could do that. If you came to me and said, hey, I've got an 80-foot lobby and I'm thinking I want a 70-foot wall by 8 feet tall, and I want the entire thing to be a single display, we can do that with direct view LED. So
generally speaking, how big are those panels? I mean, give our listeners at least, are we talking 2 foot? Are we talking 6 foot?
So right now, and there's a lot of specialty panels, but I would say that most of the time panels are broken into two different sizes. A very, very, very traditional panel would be like a 500 millimeter by 500 millimeter. It's going to be a square panel. Those are still pretty much the industry standard for touring guys, for production guys, things that are going up, coming down a lot. That size is
that sort of thing. So for like concerts.
Yeah. Yep. Or, media events, things like that. And you will have, so with direct view LED, you certainly have kind of the camp of production, which is going to go up, come down. Maybe it's going to be outside. Maybe it's going to get rained on. And then you have other things that are going to be more of fixed install, where, hey, we're going to have a church. We're going to have a lobby where it's going up and it's staying up and it's not coming down. And the cabinets that you have are going to have different strengths. The cabinet's going to go up and down a bunch versus one that's going to go up once and stay are going to be built a little bit differently.
So the concert ones are about how big?
Usually a pretty traditional size is 500 millimeter by 500 millimeter.
Which is what? How many inches? How many? We're talking
let's do some math.
Half meter. So
probably like 2 feet by 2 feet, isn't it?
It's a little above 2 feet, but somewhere right around there.
Okay.
So that's kind of one, and we will have that in fixed install as well. But a pretty common one is what we call a 16 by 9 panel. And that's what the majority of the projects that I do for fixed install are going to be a 16 by 9 panel, which means just like your TV at home is going to be a 16 by 9 ratio. So it's going to be a rectangle. The panels that we sell are actually 24 inches wide by 13 and a half inches tall. So 2 feet wide, 13 and a half inches tall.
Okay.
And then you just, however many of those you want, you build out to the size of the wall you want.
Exactly.
Video Legos.
It's exactly what it is. So a really standard size for us is a 16 foot by 9 foot wall, that would be 64 panels, because it would be eight panels wide, which would give you your 16 foot at each panel being 2 feet wide. And then 8 panels tall would 13 and a half inches for each panel would give you exactly 9 feet. So, and the nice thing is with panels like that, if you go 2 panels by 2 panels, 5 panels by 5 panels, 20 panels by 20 panels, you're still maintaining that same 16 by 9 ratio.
That's cool. Yeah.
So if we want to make sure that, and we'll get into scaling a little bit, but we want to make sure that the ratios are the same if you're bringing in HD content, so things aren't getting stretched, things aren't getting skewed, distorted, that type of thing.
All right. Well, then thanks, Ted, for breaking all those down for us so that we have a good starting point as to what we're talking about when we say LCD panels, when we say projector, and what we mean by LED panels. So let's move into a little bit about context. So what's the purpose? What do we want to do with these? How do we know we're getting the right product for what one of our customers may want to accomplish in their space?
Sure. And I think, before we even talk about, what product is the right thing, the first question is, what do you want to do? What are we trying to accomplish? You've got this space, just like you said, we've got this space. I need a display. Awesome. What are we doing with it? What is the purpose? Why do you need to have a display there? And, if you think about, just in kind of day-to-day life, all the displays that you guys run into, they all serve a very different purpose. You start thinking about the displays. If you're at a fast food, you're at Taco Bell, a display is going to be the menu.
Right.
So it's basically just informational thing. If you're at the mall and you want to look at a directory, it's an informational thing. Other spaces, may be more of an interactive, kind of thing. Something where we have a, concert hall or something, we want to have an impact. We want to show the performance. We're going to have cameras on the performers. We want to engage the audience with that. These are all different, different kind of levels of purpose, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, and once you say that, the environment plays a big role in that as well, right?
Huge, absolutely.
How much light do we have? How many? Because each of those technologies has their place depending on what's going to perform the best.
Right.
And at some point, at some point here, I know we're going to start talking about cost too. So maybe we'll save that for a little later down the road. But
and one of those things too is what's the viewing distance? If you're sitting at, 18th row back in a concert, the stage is 30 feet deep. How far are you from the screen? If you have a 55-inch TV, 30 feet back on the back wall, there's no impact there. No one's going to see anything. But let's say that you get off of your flight and you go out and you're looking for your connection flight. You're 5 feet or so right in front of a nice 55-inch display. So, in one situation, one is perfect. You move one parameter and it's useless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really interesting. So a lot of it is what are we trying to accomplish? So, signage in a lobby is very different than signage for the stage, the backdrop in a concert hall. So
yeah, part of that is engagement, right? How are you engaging the audience? So like you said, in an airport or a bar, the 55-inch panel might be fine, but in a different context where you're 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet away, it's going to totally change
absolutely
how you approach that.
And
so maybe before we get into talking about actual applications and facilities, should we break down for our listeners maybe just a little bit what the variations are within each one of those technologies? Like projectors. There's such a wide range of things available out there today, right? You've got little portable ones that, maybe 3,000-4,000 lumens. And then you got these, huge monster things that throw out 20, 30, 40,000 lumens, right? And there's quite a range in all of that, right? So picking the right projector in the right application can be key. I know, just to talk just briefly about projectors, I'm sure our listeners have heard that, lamps are kind of on the way out. Lasers,
Yeah.
laser engines.
Don't buy lamps.
Yeah, don't buy lamps.
Don't do it.
They're expensive.
Don't do it to yourself.
Just like you're screwing in LED light bulbs now in your house, there's better technology in projectors too, and that's that laser technology, which is quite unique. So you get long life, no maintenance, no fans, all those things that made projectors tough. But and they're all the way from the little tiny ones, the little portable ones, all the way up to the big monster ones, right? I know, Michael, you've had some experience with some large laser projection systems and for different church applications.
Yeah, we installed and there again, it goes back to what's the application. Well, this particular church actually wanted a full backdrop to their stage. So we put in a 30-foot wide by 18-foot tall projection screen. And we had to, and thankfully there was no ambient light. There was no windows. So everything was controlled lighting. But we ended up putting in a 31,000 lumen 3-chip DLP projector with a short throw lens. So doing all the calculations with that, the customer actually wanted to be able to walk up as close as possible to the screen. So I think we managed to get about 3 to 4 feet. You can stand in front of that thing, and it's beautiful. It looks amazing.
Again, application, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I saw that screen, man, and it looks so good. It looks so good.
So even though projectors are an older technology, they've upgraded the technology within the projector to make them brighter.
Absolutely.
Another example of what you guys are talking about is
still a viable solution depending on where you want.
Yeah, and that, just to piggyback on that, there was the option to weigh against an LED screen with that, but it ended up coming down to budget, and we were able to accomplish what they wanted for nearly half the cost of an LED screen.
Yeah, because that thing is huge. Well, another example.
Still wasn't cheap, but
I have a church planner buddy, and when you're planning a church, it's not like you got tons of money just laying around, right? You're a brand new church starting from scratch. And so what they ended up doing is something similar with, a screen on the back of the stage and a projector, and it's rear projected. And they have that effect of having this really cool backdrop where they put their lyrics on over the singers' heads, but then they have like the motion background for whatever song or context, and it's huge. It's like it feels like you're immersed on the stage, and they did that, way cheaper than getting an LED wall because the technology was available. And so sometimes it makes sense there. Obviously, it's not going to be. It's not apples to apples, right? An LED wall versus a projection screen. But
an LED screen will be brighter and more impactful.
Right.
But you can accomplish what they needed, at least with projection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with projection, because you're dealing with ambient light levels and things like that. Typically, of course, in rooms that have a lot of windows and a lot of light, projection can be difficult because you're sending that light across the room and have to reflect it onto a screen. So ambient light or manufactured light, for that matter, if you can't control the light in a room and keep it off your screen, that can be detrimental. And again, it all comes down to cost, because you can keep going brighter and brighter in a projector, but at some point in time, it may be a better solution to go to an LCD wall or a direct view LED.
Yeah, we're certainly.
The size is always an issue, right?
Yeah, we're certainly finding that when you start getting into the 30 to 40,000 lumen laser projectors, it's not that far off. You're not that far off from the cost of an LED wall. Right. One of the things too that I would say that projection has a huge advantage is like we've done churches that are doing like environmental projection, and that's a really, really cool thing. And that is basically projecting images onto the sets and things like that you have already as the backdrop. That's the way to do it. You can't really do it with like that. That's the sole. That's what it's for. There's not really a good replacement for that. So if that's the type of thing that you're looking to kind of immerse your audience in, projection is kind of the best way to go with that.
So
I'm sure a lot of churches had that on the docket for Easter this past week, but
yeah.
So the beauty with projectors is you're not limited by size. For the most part, you can change and vary that with one projector. The size can vary depending on how big of an image you want, but you have to consider light in the room and things of that nature and how bright it's going to be and what you need.
And we do a lot of jobs too with some of the processing companies that I work with, where we have multiple projectors. Where we're scaling 2-3 projectors for a very, very wide display, right. And that's pretty common. Even on a smaller scale, you get into like a corporate boardroom or a classroom in a school, and
a lot of people are using flat panels, TVs. And those are a great option, but they are limited in size.
Yeah.
You get a room that gets back 30, 40 feet, and all of a sudden, which is common in a classroom. It's as common in a boardroom type scenario.
Yep.
That's, now you're getting into a flat panel that's getting above, 80 inches, up to 90. And the cost for a good projector to do a good image at that size is probably going to be cheaper than what it is for a flat panel. Everyone logs in and looks at Best Buy. You can see where your TV, everyone knows they're going down in price, but there's that breakover on size. Right now, I think that's somewhere around that 75, 80 inch. Mm-hmm. Anything below that's pretty cheap right now, but you go above that and prices jump.
I think we're finding a lot of clients, though, are moving away from projection and putting in, 86 inch, 90 inch TVs and paying the minor extra cost to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that price point's coming at that point. Yeah. It's going to continue to move as TVs, and we assume are going to continue to go less, but who knows what's going to happen with her.
Well, and
get into the address what COVID is going to have and the impact of our economy in China and where all this stuff comes from to begin with. But we won't get into that.
Right.
So, anyway, I just wanted to have that discussion about projection. I know LEDs is the way of the future and direct view LED, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time on that, but projection's not out there, especially the lasers. I don't know about you, Christian or Michael, but I've pretty much personally given up on lamp projectors. I don't think
I just don't even bring it up anymore.
No. It's not
I hope none of our manufacturers that really want us to sell lamp projectors aren't listening, but I'm sorry we gave up on those. So
yeah.
Well, and so a couple other things too. One of the things that you do want to be careful of when you start talking about, engagement and impact, with the audience. One of the big problems, probably one of the biggest problems with projection is, you're still projecting light onto a screen. So what do you do when you have people in front of it? Something when you're dealing with an LCD, display or a direct view LED, 100% of the image is coming from behind that person. So you could certainly do rear projection as well. But there's some issues with rear projection. The biggest one is do you have the space behind the screen to do rear projection? If you do, rear projection is fantastic. If you don't, then it's just in a lot of rooms, it's not even an option. You can't even talk about it. So
yeah, Ted, you actually went through a project with me recently up in Traverse City where we remodeled the room and we went round and round about LED versus projection. Mm-hmm. And the pastor really wanted a backdrop, and there was just no way. I mean, it was up against an outside wall, and there was just absolutely no way to do projection. Like the only right choice in that room was an LED screen.
Exactly. And
remember, you got to put this projector somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And just on that note too, Michael, I've been in a number of churches that they say, well, we really don't want to see a projector hanging down in the middle of our church.
What church wants to see AV anywhere?
Yeah, right.
Well, some do. And they'll say, why can't we put the projector back there on that back wall? Right. They'll say, well, you can do that, but the piece of glass that you're going to have to buy, the lens to put in front of that projector may cost you as much as the projector itself.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that, you're losing 1,000 or more lumens right off the bat by shoving that big piece of lens and shooting it 60, 80 feet from the back wall. So
you're going to have to upgrade your projector on top of that.
Now your LCD walls
Right.
and your direct view LED are giving them the ability to do that without that visual projector hanging there. So,
well, and you guys have talked about ambient light a bit too. And when you talk about engagement, when you talk about making an impact on your audience, the last thing that you want to do is, hey, we put a project together, we pooled all this money, we made the upgrade, and everyone goes to the first service, and all the colors are washed out. The image is not impactful because, I wouldn't say that it's hard to see, but we've all seen displays, or we've all seen technology where it's impacted by the ambient light.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of rooms that have tons of windows in it. We've done a lot of lobbies. I've done a lot of worship spaces that have lots of windows. And, no matter how good of a projector you put in there, there's always going to be a chance. It's competing. One light source is competing with another. And,
you can't compete with God, man, with the sun.
When you've got something like direct view LED or, the tile display walls, they are going to be, brighter in a ambient light situation, so there's definitely a good thing. Can
I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Well, I just recently did a project where, I had a lot of windows in this place. And so what I do usually is I take the lux measurement when I get to the site, and we shoot for 3 times the lux measurement. So in this case, my calculations actually turned out that this church needed a 16,000 lumen laser or 16,000 lumen light source. And, well, that was clearly out of the budget. So it's a small little church,
churches have budgets,
150 people, maybe, so we ended up quoting 8,000 lumen, which is half the light. But we did bring a demo in, showed it to them. It was acceptable to the customer. I said, take the difference in your money and invest into some shades, close those windows down if you can. And I left it in the customer's lap to kind of take care of that issue. So there is solutions out there, but you just got to kind of think creatively sometimes.
You brought a good point up there. If I can just touch on that a minute, Michael, it's, as we've talked about in the past, we're also sound dealers, and we sell a lot of what we do is when we're talking to clients, we're trying to figure out what their perception is. What are they expecting? It's very difficult sometimes to talk to a client and get an idea of what their expectations are. And I always tell people this, when you go to buy a TV, there's a reason why you walk into Best Buy and they've got every one of them on the wall next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to deal with the expectation. The person can look at it and see the difference. These things all cost different amounts, but it can be difficult to understand in just talking to someone what their perception of what they're going to get is. And I find that even a bigger deal in video than I do in audio.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I think
people see where their dollars are versus hearing where their dollars go.
So demos are a big deal. I guess that's what I was hitting on there. If something we always talk about, if there's something that, if you're feeling that the client doesn't, your expectations may not be lining up, the best thing to do is try to show them what their expectation might be by bringing in some demo equipment or bringing them somewhere else so they can see it somewhere else.
Right. That's great. I'm actually going through that with a client right now for an audio system, and we installed kind of what they're looking for, and we're trying to set up a time for them. But obviously with COVID, all that kind of is on hold. But yeah, I think showing a customer, showing a client an example, that does so much of the legwork for you. Like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we want. Or, oh no, that's definitely not what we want. Right.
Well, in the case of this other church too, it's, they're going from absolutely no projection to adding projection to their sanctuary. Like they have, so their expectation is not that high, really.
Right.
Well, and when you talked about shades, that's actually one of the points too. When you take a look at, okay, so you want to have you want to engage the audience. You want to have something that's impactful. One of the other things to look at is what's the actual impact on the architecture or the room design. I guarantee in that room, somebody spent a lot of time putting the windows in the right place, making the flow of the room feel right because of those windows. And that was certainly a thought when they built that room. So is, the impact of we can do the projector, but you guys aren't going to be happy unless we put shades on. That's going to impact the architecture of that wall.
Absolutely.
And that's something else to consider. We've got, lots of projects. I mean, how many site walks have we done, Michael, where we go in and people say, I want an LED wall. And then you talk to somebody else on the board and they're like, yeah, but we can't have it in the center because we have a stained glass wall that we cannot cover up. So what options do we have? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of situations that I've come into where there's multiple camps of, you've got different people with different expectations on kind of what, one camp is, I'm super, super excited about getting some new display technology in here to engage the audience. There's another camp that says that's great, but like Todd was saying, I don't want anything to change. I don't want to cover up the stained glass window. I don't want to
do a site.
Yeah.
And they say we can't cover the cross in the center.
Sure.
I'm like, well, you
up.
could project 1 million crosses on there if you want.
Yeah, right. Like project as many as you want. Right. Totally.
Well, we've
different
done
colors, sizes, shapes.
we've done things too where we actually have the ability to have walls drop. We've done this. I've done this at a couple places where we have like the baptismal pool, and they use it 3 times a year or so. Well, the wall, it's a perfect place for the wall to go, but that 3 times a year we need to make sure that the wall's gone. So we could do motors in the ceiling that would raise the wall up for those three times.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like at your church, Michael, where you've got this big beautiful wall. You've got kind of the traditional where it's up and back, and then it drops down with motors and moves forward for more temporary.
I wish we had a picture to show. So at Michael's church, Central Wesleyan, how big is that LED wall, man?
That's 17 by 65?
60 feet, 60 feet wide by 17, I believe.
Yeah.
17 feet high, 60 feet
Man,
wide.
I'm coming to that place for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man.
I think, yeah. And
You have a Super Bowl party?
when I was on staff, I was the audio guy there at that time when that was put in. So I didn't have a lot of say or involvement in that. But I would say one of the most impressive things was just putting in the structure to support that thing. We had to bring in welders attached to the building steel, bring in a rigging company. I mean, it was an undertaking. I mean, I don't know how much cash was actually dumped into that, but I could tell you, well over 150,000 in rigging.
Yeah, that's crazy.